Readers, yesterday you started to read thinking more about how your personal lens might impact your perspective and how you think about your reading. And there might have been moments that happened where you thought, I think that happened in chapter 2. Or didn't she say? And it might be hard then to remember all that happened in the story. This is typical with longer, denser narratives. The stories have a lot of characters and often multiple plot lines, and they may jump forward and back in time. All of that means that it gets harder to hold on to the story itself. Let's try this right now. Will you try retelling a movie that you've seen recently or one that you know well? It might be Black Panther or Love, Simon or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Any movie where a lot happens. Okay, now try explaining the big things that happen and that matter the most in the movie. Give yourself 1 minute to do this. Readers, it's hard to explain everything that matters in a longer, denser story. There are techniques, though, for summarizing more complicated stories, ones that will help you focus on significant parts of the story. Today, I want to teach you that analytical summarizing becomes important when you are reading complicated narratives. Two kinds of analytical summaries that can help you hold on to the complexity of the story include character-based summaries and thematic summaries. Let's try this out as we read more of Pride. Last time, we read the very beginning of the novel, and a lot happened very quickly. Right now, I want you to work to reconstruct what happened at the beginning of Pride. So you might have focused on the narrator and said a lot about what you had learned about Zuri. Or you might have tried to describe all the characters, and you ranged across the Benitez family and the Darcy family. Still, others may have focused more on the neighborhood and the changes that the Darcy family represent. Readers, let me give you a tip. Because your books have so much going on in them, if you retold the story from the beginning to where you are currently, it would take you hours. So, as I mentioned a moment ago, you have to make choices about what to include in a summary. Two analytic choices include a character-based summary or a thematic summary. For instance, if I were to try a character-based summary, I'd focused on what's most interesting and significant to me about the character so far. So I might start like, so far we met Zuri, who is the narrator. She lives in a neighborhood called Bushwick, and she seems acutely aware of race and class issues in her neighborhood. She thinks a lot about how her neighborhood is changing. Zuri's parents are Haitian and Dominican, and these cultures are important to her. Another significant thing about Zuri is what else might you include in a character-based summary? Pause the video and jot some of your thinking for a minute. Another significant thing about Zuri is how fond she is of her older sister, Janae. She's been waiting for Janae to come home from college, and maybe that's why Zuri is so uneasy about these Darcy boys who have moved in. She's uneasy that they seem so wealthy, and maybe she's uneasy that they'll take Janae away from her. Do you see how we focused on a character? You can do this work too. You can try summarizing, focusing on a few of the main characters. Whereas if we had done a thematic summary, we would have probably talked about gentrification or Zuri's concern with class. So let's read a new part of Pride. As you listen, will you think about how you might summarize, bringing together this new part with what you've already read? So I want you to decide, are you going to work on character summary, focusing on Zuri, or do you want to try thematic summary? At some point, you're going to want to try both. So choose one that you think you might want to work on now. Okay, we're going to jump ahead a little in the book, so let me tell you a bit about what's happening since the last scene. We learned at first that Zuri, our narrator, is really concerned about gentrification in her neighborhood. She lives in Bushwick, a neighborhood of Brooklyn, and she's Haitian Dominican. Her family, the Benitez family, is a close-knit, noisy family who seems really embedded in the neighborhood. Then this new family moves in across the street. Zuri calls them the rich family. There are two brothers in this family whom Zuri calls two fine black teenage boys, but their class makes Zuri suspicious of them. Now we're jumping ahead. Since that scene, Zuri's mother organized a welcome home dinner for Janae that turned into kind of a block party. That's the way the Benitez family fits in this neighborhood. Oh, and we find out that the building the Benitez family lives in is owned by a woman named Madrina, who is kind of unofficial auntie to the girls. So everything adds up to another theme, which is how important the neighborhood is to these girls, especially to Zuri. We also find out that Madrina's nephew Colin will inherit the building when she dies. In this scene we'll read now, Zuri and Janae are sitting on the roof and they're talking about how their family has hardly left Bushwick. Okay, are you ready? Remember that you're trying to either do a character-based summary or a thematic summary. As I'm reading, think about what else you are learning about the characters, what new themes emerge, and then also think about whether you're better at jotting while listening or jotting after you listen. I ask, does it feel good to finally be home? Yeah, but I can't wait to go back, she says. I'll pull my head off from her shoulder and stare at her. What? You just got here. I know, but Z, I need the space. I need the wide open space to stretch out my arms. I need the quiet to hear myself think. Oh no, Janae, Mama was right. 1 year at college and you decide you don't want to be in the hood no more. She pauses and takes in the dead serious look on my face before responding in her sweet, calm voice. Honestly, I don't. I'm applying for some study abroad programs. I want to travel, Z. I want to see the world. Then I can come back. I never knew that's what she wanted. I can hardly imagine it, my sister on the other side of the world. What if she decides to never come back? Oh, come on, Nay. You've been out of the state. Let's see, I say, counting on my fingers. That time with Mama when we went to the mall in New Jersey, the water park in Pennsylvania, I kept 2 fingers up, thinking of anywhere else we've been and if they count as a whole other state. Don't think too hard, Z, because that's it. We've been to a mall and a water park out of state. That doesn't count for anything. Dang, I say, and let my shoulders drop because she's right. Only once have Mama and Papi taken a bus up to Syracuse for a weekend. It would have cost too much for my sisters and me to go, so we stayed behind, and they sent us videos and pictures of the bus ride through woods and small towns and places nothing like Bushwick or Brooklyn. Read to travel, Papi always says. Every book is a different hood, a different country, a different world. Reading is how I visit places and people and ideas. And when something rings true, or if I still have a question, I outline it with a bright yellow highlighter. So it'll lift up in my mind like a light bulb or a torch leading the way to somewhere new. It's usually enough to make me forget I've barely left Bushwick. Okay, Z, she says, enough with the pity party. Senior year's coming up. What's the master plan? 'Cause you got to get out of that apartment. Got to get out of that apartment, I repeat. Wow, I can't believe by this time next year I'll be leaving for college. Marisol and the twins are going to lose their minds because there'll be 2 less bodies up in that house. That's what I said about you before I left. But I'd lose my mind. I missed you, Nene. No, no, no. You're not allowed to miss me. You got to get your mind right from now, Z. Study for your next SATs, get your college list ready, financial aid packages, scholarships. I know, I say. Seriously, Z, if you don't do these things, you won't ever get out of here. Home will always be here, and Bushwick will always be Bushwick. Will it, though? She's quiet for a moment and looks out over the other houses and buildings. Okay, well, what if you come back home and get started on your career, and then you could actually buy something in Bushwick and afford Hernando's bodega prices no matter how many organic signs he puts up? I laugh and then remember what I'm supposed to be working on this summer. You think this will make a good topic for my essay to get into Howard? I ask. How to save the hood? It depends on how you frame it. What's your angle? Your thesis statement? What are you trying to say? I pause for a moment, thinking about my hood and how even though families grew up and changed, things essentially stayed the same until now. To continue with this lesson, go back to the lesson platform for part 2 of this read aloud video.